So today's talk is called The Dark Night of the Soul, Awakening to Love. So I really don't use the word dark soul, awakening to the dark night of the soul. May have tucked in the dark night of the soul. I really don't use that terminology. I heard it from Eckhart Tolle, the dark night of the soul. And basically, from my understanding, what it means is the prior often to the energetic shift, there is a lot of terror that can happen. And the reason that there can be a lot of terror is because when you energetically expand, which this is what to me the actual awakening is that you stop being limited to a person. You stop being limited inside the body and you expand back into consciousness and beingness. You could say that consciousness and beingness meet. It often is preceded by a lot of fear. For me, what I think happens is that as you begin to expand and there stops being that contraction, the body begins to get the signals that it's dying, because that normally only happens in death. So it doesn't normally happen when the body is alive. Most people live their whole life being somebody inside the body. So to me, I feel like what happens is the body begins to get signals it's dying. And that can happen like weeks or months or years prior to the energetic shift. It's like it's beginning to break down. And then this terror begins to arise in the body because the body's getting the signal and dying. And that's why I feel like it happens. But other people would say different things, and I'm totally open to these different ideas, because in the end, this life is infinite possibilities, and I don't know the answers to everything. I don't even know if I know the answers to anything. I just talk, and there might be illuminating of something or removal of something, but it's not that I'm speaking in truths. But what other people say is that they kind of like make it out like a battle, that you're like battling the ego, and it's like the final fight. So as the ego begins to crumble, it puts up a lot of fight, and fear is like its final defense, like terror and fear. If you look at Buddha's story, which is I find really beautiful, is prior to his enlightenment, he sat under the Bodhi tree for 40 days and 40 nights, and in that time, Maya, illusion, presented all types of heaven and hell, and the Buddha did not move. And that I feel is true. Like that is what happens when awakening happens, is that the you and the witnessing is no longer attached. And so there is witnessing happening, and the you and the person is doing all types of things in front of the witnessing. And there's not an involvement of it. There's not a going into it. The personal attention isn't being drawn into it, and it's like being believed as really real. It's just watching. There is a remaining in witnessing. And it's not really an activity. That sounds like an activity, that you remain as the witness. But it's actually the witnessing and the you begin to break away from each other. So a certain amount of seeking begins to disappear, and then there is a breaking away from that entanglement of the witness and the person. So that breaks away and separates, and then there is a remaining as the witness when all these things are playing out. So the Buddha remains still, Buddha nature. But the problem with language is we always make it sound so personal, like we're doing it, and we're really not doing it. It's a happening. If you are destined to wake up in this life, that is the destiny. If you're destined not to wake up in this life, that is the destiny. You know, it's not your doing. Like you is a after energy claiming something. Like there is an energy moving and you is claiming it after that movement is happening. So there is the urge coming up to speak, and then the mind says, that's me speaking, I am the speaker. But that's really not true. Who is the speaker? That's the afterthought, that's the illusion, that's when it's like enmeshed the witness and the person. And what can happen for many years is there's like a breaking away. So you're breaking away into witnessing consciousness, and then you're getting involved in the person, breaking away and getting involved. And it might even feel like you're doing it, like that you are consciously witnessing, that you're putting your attention in the I am, or in the consciousness. I just got a note, sorry, on my recording app saying that it's getting overloaded. Yeah. So yeah, there is a breaking away of that, and it might feel like you're doing it, but that's a lie. Who is the doer? The doer is an afterthought, and the witnessing isn't an activity really. It feels like an activity, but eventually it's seen as without activity, that there is no one doing that. Yeah. And so what that meant in the Buddha's story as Maya presented heaven and hell, I feel, is that the illusion of the mind brought up all the things that could possibly make Gautama, the Buddha, Gautama was his name, afraid, and all the things that Gautama wanted. So it brought up like virgins, it brought up war, it brought up love, it brought up family, it brought up mental suffering, death, and it was trying to get that energy to reattach with the person, that seeking energy that then lives in a horizontal line of a person that is always seeking for God, for freedom, for stillness, for consciousness in that horizontal line of itself. And the witnessing consciousness isn't the end. What happens then is there is this expansion. So for a period there is a resting as the watcher, and then there is an expansion where consciousness meets beingness, meets everything. So consciousness stops being something which is seemingly inside the body, belonging to the brain and the body, and it goes back to everything. So consciousness becomes the fundamental of existence rather than something that belongs to someone. I am conscious, my brain is conscious. So it expands, and this is love. When it goes back to beingness, it's like absolute love and bliss. Blissfulness is the experience that comes and goes in the body-mind mechanism, but your essence is love, and blissfulness is a feeling that comes and goes. That's not it, the blissfulness. That's a side effect. But yeah, so this meeting of consciousness and beingness is absolute love. It's like Shiva and Shakti being reunited. It's like being reunited with the constant lover, with that person that you've always dreamed of. But it's not a person, obviously. That could be confusing. But, in your childhood, you dreamed of meeting this perfect lover, and that was illusion. That was the mind getting it wrong. What you actually wanted was to dissolve back into everything, to fall back in love with what you are, not with a person. Yeah. So what happens when the black soul, the dark night of the soul happens, is that it's not training, but what needs to happen is a not touching of it. So it begins to come up, that fear or that terror, and it's not this, not that. It's like a not touching of it. And that's not really something you can do. That's something that happens. You know, you go through this process and you always think it's me that's doing it. But it's actually something that happens by itself. Like you get broken down more and more, and then there's more and more energy, I don't know what to call it, staying in the witness rather than going into the person and the person's fears. So every time you feel uncomfortable about anything, here's an opportunity. We often see pain as like the bad devil that we're just trying to get rid of, but actually that's not true. Every time you experience pain or experience something that's difficult, it's the perfect opportunity to see not true. This is not true. This isn't truth. This isn't the truth. This isn't what I am. There isn't something to be afraid of now. There isn't the big bad wolf coming. Or whatever it is, being told that you're a bad person, or that this is wrong, or that is wrong. It's not true. Not true. Not this, not that. Mind is always saying, it is this, it is that. This is a problem. It is a huge problem that this person said this to me. It's a huge problem that this person did that to me. It's a huge problem that this happened, or I'm going to die now, or my body is dying now. And every time that happens, it's the opportunity to see that this isn't true. All of this whole world, the whole universe is made up. There's nothing true in it. There is nothing true in it. So right now, whatever you're feeling, you might have a judgment like, this feels bad, this is not good, I don't want this. And that's your golden opportunity. Like it's not getting caught in the illusion of this life. Nothing is real, nothing is true. Anything your mind is saying you, it's kept saying to you, it's chemicals happening. It's illusion. You could look at it as like data happening, like programming happening in a computer, and it's not your truth. Yeah, you don't, it's not that you don't have to believe it, but the key to it is not believing in it, not seeing it as something, not seeing it as a reality. So for me, in this body, pain comes up. Like just now, I had a hot flush. That's what the noise was. This was going off. So, wonderful. And hot flushes are painful. Yeah. Any woman in their 40s or 50s understand how painful experience. It's not talked about in our society, so men have no idea what that's like. And there's pain that comes with it, before the hot flush, and then you're like burning hot. You kind of just want to jump into an ice bath. And that's the, that's the golden opportunity. This is the place where it's like absolute acceptance. Life isn't this permanent state of pleasure, of blissfulness. There is pain that arises, and in that pain, it is the gift to go beyond, to see the illusion of this life. When you believe in pain and pleasure, and they become your masters, then you just suffer. You just suffer, because you get more and more running after pleasure and trying to avoid pain. So it just doesn't work. Just doesn't work. And the key to it is when the pain comes up, it's not true. And hot flushes are such a good example of that, because for those that have never had one before, prior to the hot flush, there's a very uncomfortable feeling in the body. It's like a flight or flight response, like a shock. It's hard to explain what it is. Like it's like the body temperature, so when your estrogen, I don't understand the science of it, but when your estrogen is like dropping really rapidly and going up really rapidly, it's like a shock for the body. So just prior to it happening, you get like a shock feeling, and like you could be like, oh, and then if you do that, then suddenly you're like, oh, it's a hot flush, because then you begin to feel the heat. But before the heat comes, it's like as if there's an intruder coming in or something. And it's such a good time to see the illusion of everything. That just because my body can't get its temperature right, it doesn't know what the temperature is, it sends out these chemicals of alert, there is danger coming. And it's all illusion. That's what's happening all the time, dependent on the way your system is trained. You'll see pleasure in some things and pain in some things, and then these chemical reactions come up, and we take them as us and ours and saying something about us. But they're not. They're a play happening, and they're not truth. And if you have pleasurable chemicals, you're like, oh, I've done life right, relax, I've done it right. And if you have painful ones, you're like, there is something wrong with me, I've done something wrong. And it's not true. This is the illusion. This is the dance, and this is what's happening all the time, that everyone's running around in these skin sacks that are having these chemicals going off, telling them all these crazy, well, not telling them, but giving all these crazy signals, and then the mind is interpreting and making all these juicy stories out of them, which is then triggering more of these chemicals and then more juicy stories. And it's running around the planet trying to relax all these juicy, funky chemicals that are coming up. Whereas in non-duality, it's like, sit still. What is it you are prior to those chemicals? That is illusion. That is what creates this Maya, this illusion. It's not true. It's not true. So what else is happening? Who are you? If you don't change the pleasure, if you don't get involved in the pleasure and pain, if you don't believe that, who are you? If you don't get involved in the stories, who are you? And every pain that arises is a golden opportunity to see the illusion of it. Okay, so we go to questions. Wrong thing. Yeah, so just be aware that this is being recorded, the whole talk, so it will go on to YouTube. Yeah, Sam, you can unmute yourself.
Hi Lisa.
Hey.
Yes, sorry, I put my hand up a bit early because I didn't want to interrupt your introduction, but I have to go in about 15, 20 minutes to a meeting. But I can understand what you're saying about like knowing something there all through pain and pleasure. Like I have back pain quite a lot. Um and sort of through that more and more there is this, like, I'd call it a peace of mind that's still there even when pain comes and goes, and tiredness is one for me. Like I get tiredness a lot at the moment, but it's probably a really silly question for me, but I can't get my head, I don't know, I really just think it's coming out. Could it, for me, like, could I call it a peace of mind instead of love? I don't get the love thing. I don't know if I've got something against love in general, but it doesn't, for me, maybe love would come and go as well, because you can have love for someone, but um could you also just replace it with peace of mind instead of love, like as who you as what you are, like an unbroken peace of mind? That's what's available.
I think in the end, like, everybody has to find what they feel comfortable with in terminology. So if you feel comfortable with peace of mind, then I feel like that's what you should stick with.
Yeah,
Not look too much to what other people say. The only thing that I say about love part is that when teachers don't talk about love, yeah, like I sometimes wonder, I suppose, if they have or haven't awoken to the beingness side of things, which is love. But in the end, you really have to find your own words, and don't let me disturb you from that. Like, it's your own investigation and your own way of
yeah,
interpreting things, because you might be like love of, and love might be a really different word. But to me, it would be undoubtedly love would be a description of the beingness side of things. But
Okay.
that doesn't say anything about your experience, because who knows, if we both describe the taste of watermelon, you might say juicy, and I might insist that it's that it's not juicy. Who knows how we
Yeah.
describe things.
Yeah, that's it. It's just terminology, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that was it. Just a quick question really. I guess yeah, beingness maybe as well. I'm not so much the beingness, the I amness maybe is not always there when other things seem to get in the way. So maybe I haven't felt that so much the way I want to call it excuse me, call it love. But I definitely feel more and more peace of mind in sort of in the background, even when something can be going wrong, you can have pain, you can
Yeah.
have pleasure, but there's always kind of, I think it is a bit of beingness. And to me, it's just, maybe it's even like a male female thing. To me, it just seems like peace more than a love, but I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and Roger says peace of mind. I really love the way Roger teaches.
I think that's what it is that I listened to a lot of Roger as well recently. It's just it, but yeah, I think you're right. I shouldn't get caught up on the words really.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Well, thanks,
Thanks.
Lisa.
Thanks, Sam. Hey, Phil, you can unmute yourself.
Hi.
Hey, Phil.
Yeah, so it was really interesting to hear you say you're either going to wake up or you're not, and you're not the doer of it. That's kind of mind-blowing.
Yeah.
In that we're all here sort of listening to you, or maybe we listen to Eckhart Tolle or Rupert Spira, and we think that we're searching for something that we don't already have. And if we get that, I mean, I always get what you're saying. So, and this might sound funny, but after you get that, why would I continue listening? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, there's two things. Is firstly, who would get it? Like, who do you think would get it or understand it? Like, what would that be? What would that look like? Someone getting it or something getting it?
Well, yeah, to me, it's like whatever arises, it just arises. And so you're just being with whatever arises. And so you always start your sessions with explaining what non-duality is. And so I understand that.
Yeah.
And I guess what you're saying is the fact that I use the word I throws it all out the window.
Well, what do you mean by you understand it? Because there can be two things that happen. There can be understanding of the mind, where you understand what's being talked about and you recognize what's being talked about. And there can also be an awakening in the mind, where you recognize consciousness or you recognize the witness. But that's not it. That's a seeming part on the path. The it part is when there is an expansion and the consciousness stops being inside the body. It expands back out into beingness. And that's an energetic movement. It's not an understanding. It's like a shift in energy, and being somebody that is alive inside of the body to being everything. And it's not an intellectual thing. You don't understand it from that. It's a movement of energy. So there's different things that can happen. So when you say you understand it, that's why I question, like, who understands it?
Yeah. It's funny because I could keep saying, well, I get that. So that would go on. But I guess, are you saying that beyond this understanding, there's a feeling, perhaps, like an energetic shift in who we are that just completely doesn't care about the I anymore? It's like that, was it that sailor Bob who's always saying, you're just not here. You're just not here.
Yeah.
You know,
Is it a feeling? I don't know how we describe that. It's like, I don't know what that is. Yeah, like I don't know how you describe that, because a feeling tends to be like a feeling of a table, a feeling of an emotion, feeling of anger, feeling, you could say, of a smell or a sound. Whereas this is that still presence, that consciousness, which is prior to feelings, prior to thoughts, prior to sound, prior to everything, no longer being enmeshed in the person. So what happens is the consciousness and the person seemingly become enmeshed, and that breaks, and then it goes back into where it always was, but seemingly was contracted. It felt like it was contracted, which is in everything. And so I don't know if we'd call that a feeling, because a feeling is something that the body has, whereas this is that which is experiencing, going back to what it always was, which is everywhere and no particular place.
I guess I feel as though if I still have a question about it, then I don't get it.
Yeah, but the thing that's like mind blowing is that you will never get it. I thought that too.
Right. There's nothing to get.
Yeah,
right?
I thought I would get it. Like, so the mind can have clarity, the thoughts can have clarity, but this is beyond the thoughts. Like, consciousness is beyond the thoughts. So if I tell a story, maybe that shifts or illuminates something. Who knows what it does? But I'll tell a story. So when I was in India many years ago with Roger, my teacher, I was laying in bed, and I don't know if I fell asleep. I don't know what happened, but suddenly there was awakeness and nothing else. Like, so that's impossible to imagine, because we can't imagine nothing, because it's nothing, it doesn't exist. We can only imagine things. So there was just nothing, and there was total contentment in that awakeness. It was totally at home, and it was totally free, and it didn't have any urges of like, oh, we should do something, or when's something going to happen. It just was awake and contented. But not contented as somebody knew it was contented, it just was at home. And then eventually, this was an experience, so this wasn't it was an experience that happened, because I can remember it. So eventually a thought arose and said, this is what they speak about. And then another thought arose, but who is the those? Who are these people? And then who is the I? Because I didn't know anything about Lisa, I didn't know anything. There was just awakeness. There was no Lisa, there was no world, there was no past, there was no future, there was no them. So when this thought arose, like, this is what they speak about, I was then like, but who are those, who are they speaking to? Like, who would know that? And then it was like a domino effect. So this is an experience, but it really like popped something in me. So a domino effect of Lisa and the world came back in. So I can't really remember the order of it now, it was so long ago, but it was something like, so like that thought occurred, but who are they speaking to? And then it was like a domino effect of Lisa's memories. And then the feeling of Lisa came back in. Then the thoughts of Lisa came back in. Then the sounds of the outside world came in. And then the sight, the vision of the room came in. And then after that experience, so there was still suffering after that, there was still identification with the body, but after that experience, I deeply knew that consciousness was always first, not Lisa. And this consciousness was prior to anything in the Lisa world. And even though before I'd had these awakenings and there was kind of a taste of it, and it was getting clearer and clearer, this was like absolute clarity that consciousness is prior to everything. This awakeness is prior to everything. And what happens with that awakeness is when the body arises, and then after a couple of years, that consciousness seemingly feels limited to the thoughts of you. And what happens in this waking up process is not thoughts getting non-duality, not you getting non-duality, but the breaking apart of that kind of illusory union of the consciousness and the person. So that person goes into the background and consciousness goes back to what it always was, which is everything, the creator of all things. It goes back to beingness. It's Sat Chit Ananda, when consciousness meets beingness, aliveness. And this is an energetic movement. It's really not mental. It's not something you get. It's this breaking of that identification with the body-mind mechanism. And it's really not something you do. Like even the idea that you've been to all these different speakers and that you listen to all these speakers, that you put practice into this, is an idea. Actually, your body was moved to do that, and then the story came in your mind, I am spiritually seeking, I am a seeker now, I am trying to understand non-duality, I understand it. That is an afterthought. The urges and the movement, God is writing in to that body, consciousness is writing into that body to go on a spiritual search, and then the mind claims it. And you could say it's like the cart following the horse. It's like you go on the spiritual search, you think it's about you, but actually it's that consciousness wants to wake up in that form. So it's doing this dance to break out of being identified with that body-mind mechanism.
Yeah. I guess it's the problem with our language.
Yeah.
That I can't help but want to say but,
Yeah.
but you know.
I thought you were going to say I can't help but want to say I.
Well, that too. It's as though you're saying, those of us who say come to listen to one of your talks are not any closer to this experience that you just mentioned than somebody who doesn't even have a clue about what any of this stuff is, right? So it's as though consciousness is going to decide whether you have an awakened experience or not.
Yeah, and that
sense?
one that's thinking that and feeling that just doesn't exist. So it's like consciousness is even writing in that in. It's like type. It's not really typing in, but if we imagined it like type, that you're going to have this feeling of like victimhood. I don't know if you do, but if we just say that, victimhood, that others that don't put any effort into this are just as close to this as you are. Like, so consciousness is even writing that in. And
Yeah,
so
no,
it's totally not true though. That any of that story that you told me. It feels like it maybe has truth to it, like that other people might be as close as you, but it just doesn't work because there's no you, there's no them. There's consciousness, which is animating everything.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I'm just going to say I get it.
But I.
Yep. I know exactly what you're saying. And then I have to give it to you like, well, who's the I? So yeah, I mean, it could go round and round forever. So I think it's just about witnessing.
Yeah. But it can't really go round and round forever because there is no forever, there is only this.
Right.
So we're just always just here together, like immensely in love together, just in love. But this is consciousness loving itself. like everything, the words, the sounds, any ideas that
Yep.
arise.
Yep, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, yes. Bodhidharma. Thank you.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello.
I have a question regarding energy.
Yeah.
So, I started a new job. Now the second week is over, and energy-wise, it's a complete catastrophe because it's a huge office, and I take on so much amounts of energy. And like I do energy clearing and meditation afterwards, and mainly I get the most of the energy out before I go to bed. But I wanted to ask, even though I know that it's not going to be like the future job, and then sooner or later I'm going to pull the plug. But I just wanted to ask, like, how much can such an environment get in the way, even when you're not too much in the mind during work?
Yeah. Ultimately, nothing can get in the way because all of it's consciousness, all of it is God, all of it is yourself. So who would it get in the way for? You know, the idea that there is a you there that's picking up other people's energy is an idea. There is consciousness. So it can't really get in the way of anybody. Like, who's going to awaken? However, I'm going to do the but now. But I. Why is it the but? Like, how did but arise that's the same as like but, like our behind, our bottom? Like, why are these words the same? How did they originate as the same? But and but. But yeah, there are body-mind mechanisms that go into. There are empaths that are more sensitive to energies of places, and that's what happens. Sorry, I'm getting really blissed out. It's going to turn into a flop. Have you ever listened to the telepathic tapes?
No, I have no idea what's that about.
It's about telepathy.
Yeah, no, I'm not really into this.
I recommend it. That might help you with your job.
Yeah. Will I also hear the thoughts then?
One would hope not. And I was listening to it. They started speaking about hearing nature, you know, like hearing trees. And the next day I'm cycling along on my bike and I look to the side and I'm like, oh God, no, don't let me hear the trees as well. Please, not nature as well. My partner, when I told him afterwards, he was like, but why wouldn't you want to hear nature? And I was like, hearing the humans is enough.
By whom is it?
I don't know the name of the lady. It's a podcast.
Okay.
But ultimately, so you can watch that and deal with the telepathic stuff and picking up energies. But ultimately, from this part, from the other part, it's like all consciousness. So every energy you feel is yourself as consciousness. And who's the you that is feeling somebody else's energies? If you are consciousness, then you are it all. What the body-mind mechanism can do, though, is to learn how to manage that. But I'll leave that to the telepathic tapes to help you a bit. Then we can discuss it more.
Yeah, let's see if I find it. Well, do I find it on YouTube or on Spotify or?
It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Nice, thanks, Bodhidharma.
Thank you.
Yes, Wolfgang Pull, you can unmute yourself. You put your video on. Maybe you didn't want to. You did.
Okay.
That's okay.
Hello, Lisa.
Hello, Wolfgang.
Just want to say something about the dark night of the soul. My experience with this is a little bit, maybe a little bit different. It was more crumbling down and depression at the same time. And yes, it was, of course, it was terrible. And it was in the night, and it was terrible. Yeah, I think yes, it was terrible. And I think my experience was my former psychotherapist helped me a little bit about that, only to live the next day, I would say. And yes, and then after that happened sometimes, 3 times, 4 times or something like that. And then it vanished. But there wasn't an awakening after that. I think what I would call awakening came much, much later. And it was an immense feeling of total love of all and everything. And of course, I met some people at this time, and I always wanted to explain there is love without a person. And of course, that was impossible. Everyone looked at me and I know that's not possible. You can't love without a person. And I said, sure, you can. Yeah, I only wanted to bring this aspect of the dark night of the soul and awakening, nothing else. I think that, yes, that was it for me. I wanted this.
Yeah, I would say that most probably depression has fear in it, but in the end, the point to it is it might manifest slightly different, but it's the surrender in it that happens. Like that very difficult stuff that was happening, there was like a surrender to it, like a not fighting it. There might have been the feeling of fighting it, but there was something that withstood it. And that, I think, is the breaking away of the seeker and the seeking. Like this movement brought more back to an acceptance or a surrender to it. But yeah, they can be agonizing, these awakenings, like agonizing, where you, like, I maybe didn't describe all the varieties of them well enough, but where you, to the point where you feel like you're going mad, where your mind is like screaming and shouting, trying to get out of something because it's so uncomfortable, like horrendous feelings, feelings like hell, like you're being dragged into hell. But I would say that, so Roger, the way that Roger taught me was he would say at the base of every feeling is fear and love. So the person is always trying to get to love and avoid fear. So even in that depression, I would say that in the base of it, there was most probably terror and fear, but it was just wrapped up in other parcels, other forms. Thank you for bringing that up, because I'm sure there's other people that can relate to what you said about the depression.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I take some written questions. Do you all hear the music? Because I can't hear it. Did you hear music? Was it only me that heard the music? That would be super funny if I'm sitting there like singing and then you're all like, don't even notice. Okay, that's just no echo. There's no question there. Thank you for telling me. Sarah. Okay, there's no questions. Yes, Emma, you can unmute yourself. I hope you didn't just have an empath attack there where you're like, oh, I've got to ask a question to help her out. I'm sure you didn't.
I love it. No, I didn't actually. I'm on my phone, so I can't see whether people have their hands up or not, or where, if I was in a queue or not. It's maybe a kind of a serious question because you're blissing out, and I was wondering.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you wouldn't mind explaining just a summary of that experience you had when you when you were, I think in Australia, and you said you fell asleep, but you weren't sure if you fell asleep, and there was just awakeness.
Yeah. Yeah, it was in
Because
India. India, yeah.
Oh, in India, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not that that matters. Sorry, I'm being a Molly. Let me just clarify, it was in India. I was nowhere, in no place and no time, so it doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Ooh, okay. Because I'm getting a bit of a hot flush as well. That's the empath, maybe. But,
Yeah. But now maybe I'm going to get one. We'll be like a mirror.
But I'm so glad you talk about that, Lisa. It's really, really, really helpful, and they can be really exactly that. I'd never thought of it as a fight and flight thing. It was just to say that I know I did tell you I had something like that happen, where like it was like I had died almost. I was in this. The context is just very basically like I think it was some form of holotropic breathing, but my body yeah. And I think I'm obviously still like really integrating that experience. And lately, it goes from being like dysfunctionally blissed out to thinking I'm going crazy.
Yeah.
Like intense rage even, or like nothing. And then I know I need to sit down, but sometimes I won't be in a context just to sit with the rage. So I just breathe through it and try not to think about it, because it can happen when I'm at work. And it won't be that somebody will have triggered me. There's not always a cause and effect. Yeah. I was just wondering, did you have a little bit of that too, or was it more just, it's very extreme?
Yeah.
I'm going from one extreme to the other. Yeah.
Oh, from the next 2 years after that, or 2 or 3 years after that, it was like immense flip-flopping. And towards the end, on one hand, I could say I was the most peaceful I'd ever been in one way, but then, like overall, but then when the flops happened, it was like real madness and craziness that came out, like all types of really intense energetical stuff, and like the mind feeling really like it was going crazy, like really rapid sinking, and like very intense energetical stuff, like shaking and energy things going on. And I could be going from like hatred and rage to falling in love with the same person, very quickly. So that could happen, within a few hours or overnight.
Yeah.
And you most probably got it more intense, because if your hormones are fluctuating as well.
Right.
I was only 30 then, so or 28 or 27, so I was maybe my hormones are a bit more stable, but yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
So
I'm sure it augments it. I'm sure. Yes.
And the key to it is that when that energy comes, you've got to let it out of your body. So I did lots of like shaking. I did some Osho breathing stuff, like the holotropic breathing, to let the energy out of the body, like walking, qigong. But at the same time, some nights it was so intense, I'd sit up all night just like going, I am, like not allowing the mind to go into it. And it sometimes felt like a battle, that you can understand why in some of the scriptures it's like this battle that seemingly goes on. It's like this energy wanted to take my consciousness, my watching, the witnessing into itself. And it was like, I just chant, I am. I mean, I am was my way of working with it.
Yeah. Okay, I get it. For sure,
And when you have these awakenings, there's all different types, and people have them at all different times, but they can really, it's like a Coke can that's been shaken up. Like you have the awakening, and like the suppressed energy, it's like, out of a Coke can, like really, really strong. Yeah. And then also just because of the hormonal stuff, it's like just being gentle to yourself, because if you're also having these shifts, it's like then that can be like an extra, you know, into it as well. Yeah. Like you know, if you're having these sharp energy hormonal shifts, it can like fuel, be even more fuel to the fire. So just being really gentle.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to. And I think the other challenge is just like having the family life where I can't really sit up all night, even if I want to, you know, like there's some in the routine, in the daily routine. So my poor husband, I mean, but yeah, I get it. I'll find some modalities that will help to ground, and maybe
Yin yoga is really good, like these types of things.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's really reassuring. Yeah, really. Thanks, Lisa.
Yeah, thanks. And just really, you know, when it comes up, it's not true, not true, not true, not true. It's going to try and like get you to believe in it as much as it can. It's not true. You know, the stories or the energy or the madness, the fears, the anger.
Yeah. And when you speak, when you mentioned earlier, just like that, it's always, the truth is always before. And I mean, that is like, it brings me, right back there to like the love and the bliss and it doesn't take much to flip-flop back.
Yeah.
if the context is right, you know, like here with you guys. And so it's very extreme, but it's just sort of, I think, the nervous system, helping the nervous system to be able to deal with that, the flip-flopping, because it's part of it.
Yeah, Lena also does a really good class on Thursdays, you know. I don't know if you're in the WhatsApp group that gets, so yeah, I don't know how you get in contact with her. Maybe I'll put a post in the question group or something, or in the channel.
Okay, I've got a child break.
Okay, yeah.
My adolescent son is like doing the choreography, a fortnight dance, to have me come to supper.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
But I'll look Lena up. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, Jacob, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Jacob.
You know how they say we shouldn't suppress our emotions, especially those we don't want to feel.
Yeah.
So for example, sometimes when I'm feeling sad or depressed, I try to feel the emotion and my focus just goes on the emotion and it disappears and there is nothing. And I tried it also with a happy emotion. And I realized it went away instantly when I looked at it. And there was something that was neither good nor bad. And then it made me think if what I was doing is the right thing or it was suppression.
I mean, when you begin to get into like looking at emotions and allowing emotions to come up, there's like more and more depth that can happen. So that question, I think, is a really good question. You know, is that good or is that suppression? And it's not something I can answer because I don't know your experience, but it's something that you can keep investigating and keep looking. Mm-hmm. The most important part is to begin to break that obsession with the personal attention going into the horizontal timeline of you and become more interested in what's actually happening now. So in what you describe, that's what's happening. You become more interested in what's happening now. The suppression part I can't really comment on, but the more you do that, the more it will begin to be revealed. It's like the right direction. The personal consciousness is the right direction. So Nisargadatta Maharaj, he doesn't say it like this, but I take his words to say it like this, is that consciousness, so your personal consciousness, which is the ability to put your attention on your knee, on the feeling, on your nose, on the horizontal line of the story of you. So the personal consciousness and the feeling of the I am, which is the personalized beingness, is the portals to the big consciousness and the big beingness. So this is where you have to investigate. And they are happening now. Not in the imagination of tomorrow or last year or what place you want to get to or what experiences you want to have or whether you're suppressing or not suppressing. They're happening right here. So as you begin to investigate right here, which includes the feelings, it will all begin to slowly be revealed. Not because you're doing something, that is a lie as well, because the consciousness is beginning to want to wake up to itself. And so it's beginning to create the thoughts and the feelings that are becoming more interested in what's happening.
It's just super interesting to me because if I feel happy and I go inside myself, I want to feel it, and then it just disappears. And the same happens with sadness. And yeah, it's interesting.
And then what happens if you go in and you look at the one that's looking at it? Does that disappear too?
Yeah, no. Sometimes it feels like nothing's there.
Yeah. Nice.
And then maybe I have another question. What is like anxiety? Is it also an emotion?
I just answered
when you feel it in your body.
Yeah. I'll just answer that in a moment, but the first interesting part is the idea that you are asking a question. Like, that is such an interesting thing to explore, the idea that I have another question. Because so you go into it and you're like, where is this thing that has a question?
The body just spat it out.
Yeah, the body spats it out. Yeah, and then below that, consciousness. So right now, consciousness itself as consciousness is speaking to itself as consciousness, which is really phenomenal. We forget like the absolute wonder and amazement of what we're in, that we are ourself, talking to ourself and exploring ourself. If consciousness remained unmanifested, it couldn't explore itself. By dividing into two, it's exploring itself. And what a fascinating thing. And at the moment, it's exploring itself through this, producing this woman body speaking about non-duality, and then this seeming man body like asking questions about anxiety. But it's all itself. It's not two people. It's not Lisa speaking to Jacob. It's consciousness speaking and learning about itself. If it remained unmanifested, it couldn't learn about itself. What an amazing, like, mind-blowing thing that we are exploring ourselves through apparent separation. Oh, that's so exciting. I think it's going to give me a hot flush. Get my fan out. The joys of middle age. You've not made that yet.
Yeah, I get hot flushes sometimes when I'm like anxious. So maybe I can feel you.
Maybe you get it. Yeah. So, okay, so then we go, so because I allowed the expression of the wonder of consciousness, we go on to what anxiety is. Yeah, anxiety is a fascinating thing. In the end, it's like a chemical reaction happening, created by consciousness. And it can be two things. It can be because the body is out of balance, but most of the time the body is out of balance because the thinking is out of balance, and the thinking is believing that it has a life to control. And then that thought over time creates the disbalance in the body, so the chemicals and the hormone in the body create anxiety. But ultimately it's consciousness. It's consciousness creating that.
Because, for example, before, as I said, like, if I have some emotion in me, maybe it's not too difficult and I focus on it and it disappears. But then other times I go for a job interview, for example, and I know it's no big deal, but my body just has this huge reaction.
Yeah.
And I try to like feel my body. My mind is empty, but I just cannot do anything with it.
Yeah. Yeah, the best work, I think, for that would be somatic work. Have you ever heard of somatic work?
No.
Like Peter Levine? It's basically body work. Peter Levine is an amazing teacher. You can find him on YouTube. Peter Levine. If you forget after the talk, write it in the chat, the Telegram chat, and then I'll post a link. But there's all different types of somatic work, and it's basically putting the attention. It's like what you're doing, putting the attention into the body, but using all different methods to do that. This helps undo it on an energetic level, but the ultimate freedom of it is the realization or the energetic shift that none of that is you, that the anxiety isn't you. But on a practical day-to-day level, Peter Levine and this type of work has phenomenal success rate in that. But the ultimate freedom is the realizing that that isn't truth, it isn't who you are, and that all of this is God, a play of God exploring itself. So as the anxiety comes up, it is consciousness learning about anxiety and learning about it in this apparent human form.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jacob. Hey, Adrienne, you can unmute yourself. You get a celebration for the first woman questioner, I think. Oh, I've forgotten now. Maybe you are, or maybe you're not.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
Well, I want to share that at the moment is my granny dying, and I am next to her.
Yeah.
And it's just so perfect that you also offered this meeting. And it's as you know, I mean, it's very beautiful and complex, whatever experience. Yeah. And I want to say this and be here with that.
Yeah. You're with her right now?
Yeah, I'm with her, yeah. I came out of the room because she's breathing very loudly and it's really intense, you know. I don't know when the breathing will stop, and I can see that my mind is getting excited how it will be, and then just stop again and be silent and be here. Sometimes I'm singing, the Gayatri mantra for her.
Yeah.
but it's interesting because I just arrived an hour ago, that when I was back home in Austria, I felt her even closer, the one, or no one is there, and just peace. And now when I arrived, and I see her home, and my childhood is coming up, and I'm watching all this, because that's where this feeling of security. I mean, I'm enjoying being here and still hearing her breathe.
Yeah.
There is this part, and there is this part which is silent.
Yeah, the human security part and the human relation part in time. But yeah, then there's this other part where it's like total freedom. There's total release now from the body-mind mechanism. Like there's not really a her there, but that energy which is contracted inside the body is going back to wholeness, back to itself.
Yes.
So it's like it's an absolutely blissful process, but externally it can look quite difficult. Like I've been with a few people and they died, and some people can have a hard time, like the body struggles dying. Like in some people it's more easy and more peaceful, but some it's more painful. But internally she is returning back to that which she always was. So there's no more struggle, there's no more having to keep the body alive, there's no more pain, there's no more mental suffering. It's just dissolving into the love of what you are, which is absolute celebration. Like on the other side, like on the human side, there is sadness, there will be grief, because there's this seeming life that you've shared together. But on the other side, it's like total celebration. She goes back to what she always was, and no longer feels separate, no longer feels like it's her life doing. It's a very
really
precious,
grateful.
Precious time. But also then it's the grief as well, because as one form, dissolves back into itself, then there's a big shift in the other realities or positions around it.
And it's so peaceful. It's amazing that she's breathing so loudly, and that should terrify me or something, but it's not. It's so peaceful.
Yeah.
It's such a paradox.
Yeah.
I know that she's not even confined anymore in this body. Just seems like it.
Nice. Well, thanks, Adrienne, for sharing, and sending you lots of love, and your granny lots of love as well.
Thank you. Lots of love.
Okay, I think that is enough for today. So now I'll just go around and acknowledge people. So if you put your video on, that's really beautiful to be able to see you, but also no pressure. Anyway, it's God that puts it on or off anything anyway. Whether you decide to or not. Thanks, Rob. Okay. So we'll start with Natasha. and Risha. And Matisse. Luan. David S. Natalia P. Isabel R. Henny. Stacy. Kuz. Peter B. Asbjorn. Wolfgang. Izzy. I don't know if you heard. Izzy. You didn't. Wasn't sure if you realised. You just sat there like a statue. Angela. Tony. Thomas M. Bodhidharma. Peta. Lena. Jacob. Adrian. Barney. Manuka. Brian C. I can see you going to smile. You try to be serious. Nice. Yeah. Oh, hello, Henny. You turned on your video. Nice. Okay. Yeah, lots of love, everyone, and lots of love to Adrian and your granny. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Bye. And to those on YouTube, yeah, so if you want to join these private talks, then you can do by signing up to Telegram, and other advertisements. There's still some places left on the Spanish, on the Southern Europe retreat. Whoops. So yeah, you can find about that on my website. Yeah, I really, really wish you everything. Not one or two or three things, but every goddamn thing. Everything.